Hello and welcome. Um, we are continuing on with our journey through the Song of Prayer, and we are on chapter 2, Forgiveness. So remember last week we talked about how forgiveness was a gift from God, and it is given us in order for us to transition out of this world of illusion that is filled with fear and shame and blame and attack into a happy dream where we see love and kindness and forgiveness, so that from there we can be lifted out of this world. And we also talked last week about how we've been given this gift of forgiveness, but as the case with, I'm going to venture and say everything, in this world, we have taken it and turned it upside down and twisted it in a way that is now, instead of an offering of love and of truth and oneness, we have used it as a way to attack our brothers, to separate further from them. And Jesus calls this forgiveness to destroy. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the different versions of forgiveness to destroy, how it shows up. And I want to say before we get into the particulars that, as we talk about things, you might recognize your own patterns. You might recognize some of the ways that you have forgiven that were really forgiveness to destroy. And, or if you don't recognize them right now when we're talking about it, you might actually say, oh, I've never, I don't know what she's talking about. I've never done anything like that. But it might come up later and you go, oh yeah. But the most important thing to realize is there's no judgment, okay? So the ego wants to feel guilty about everything. So there's no reason to feel guilty about it. There's no reason to hold it against yourself and to use it to beat yourself up. We're talking about forgiveness here, so forgive yourself. And there's, even if we have this discussion and you totally get it, and then you walk away from your computer or your phone or however you're watching this, and you go and do something that is exactly what Jesus is saying is forgiveness to destroy. It's okay. The most important thing is to be aware of it, is to say, oh, okay, I can totally see now. This is what Nikki was talking about in that video. And that is awesome. That is a miracle right there, because you can't try to give anything over. You can't ask for a healing. You can't let it be healed unless you even know that it's there. So awareness is the first step. And again, there's no guilt involved. It's kind of like that Maya Angelou quote, when you know better, you do better. So the first step is knowing better. And the first step is, become awareness in the places in your own life where maybe you can ask for help. Okay. So let's get into forgiveness to destroy. So the first example that Jesus gives is where, a better person stoops to save a baser one. Okay, so, and I love how he also talks about forgiveness here rests on an attitude of gracious lordliness, so far from love that arrogance could never be dislodged. Okay, so this is when we say, oh my goodness, I am such an awesome person. I am such a good spiritual person that I'm going to forgive you. You messed up. You're bad. Whatever it is, but I'm so great that I'm going to forgive you. Okay. So Jesus says, not the point. So, and, what we're basically doing is telling our brother that they're steeped in sin. Okay. And how can we do that and profess to really love him and to profess to really love the Father, his Father, our Father? Because how can we do that when we're hating one of the parts of ourselves? Okay, so that's the first example. Now, the second example that he gives, I know I've definitely used this as a reasoning in my mind as to why I should not be mad or why I should forgive someone, or as a way to get over upset. So the second one is when he says, that sometimes what we'll do, instead of saying, I'm better than you, is thinking, I'm just as bad as you. Like, you did this, but in reality, I've done the same thing. In fact, I've done things worse than that. So I'm just as bad as you. So I'm going to forgive you because I'm just as bad as you, and we're all just bad, and we're all just sinners. And in fact, Jesus says that it could get into a competition, right? Like, if you're actually like having this conversation with someone and saying, oh, I forgive you, I've done the same and worse, and the other person, no, I'm more of a sinner, I'm bad, and it just goes back and forth. And Jesus says, okay, how is that helping the situation? Now we're just all steeped in guilt. We're all running around thinking that how bad we are. And again, not the point. So, he asks, can his son condemn himself and still remember him, meaning God? So can God's son condemn himself and still remember God? Remember, God created us whole and perfect. And that's how we are. And that's how we stay. And to think that we could change that and make ourselves bad or sinners or evil is the height of arrogance. That would mean that we have more power than God, that we can change what God has created. And it's just not true. And it's a way to keep us separate, again, from the wholeness and the perfection that is ourselves. Now, the third example Jesus gives is to talk about being a martyr. And a martyr is someone, in case you don't know, you probably do, but that will sit there and take it and let people either treat them badly or they believe that they're treating them badly, and hold on to that resentment and just be like, I'm going to take this from you, and I'm not going to let it affect me, but it really is. And it really inside, you're just thinking, oh my goodness, look what I've done for you. Look what I put up with from you. I deserve something from you. I deserve your respect. You should be thanking me. You should be down on your knees, kissing my feet because of what I've put up with from you. Right? And I love the way it says, he's talking about the person who's playing a martyr. He says, behold, how good are you who bear with patience and with saintliness the anger and the hurt another gives, and do not show the bitter pain you feel. It makes us feel better. It makes us feel better than. And Jesus says one of the problems with this type of forgiveness to destroy is that we hold our brother in prison. Because basically what we're saying is, every time you look at me, I want you to see what you've done to me. I want you to see how I'm silently suffering, being a good little girl or a good little boy and carrying on. But just know, deep inside, you've done this to me. You've destroyed me. And that's the message that we're sending. And we're keeping them in that prison. I mean, is that the message that we want to be sending to people we supposedly love, right? And if we're keeping them in prison, then guess what? We're in prison too, because we can only be free together. And this type of forgiveness to destroy, I think, for me, is really about those resentments, keeping those resentments, and just letting them fester and building them up. And it's a form of giving to get. Again, I'm going to be this martyr, and I'm going to because someday I'm going to get what I deserve. I'm going to be the one that's happy, and you're going to have to pay. Okay? And this moves on to the last example that he gives, which he calls bargaining. Which is kind of like, your husband does something, let's use an example, like your husband cheats on you. And you say you are willing to forgive, but he's got to grovel, right? He's got to bring you flowers. He's got to make sure all the house works. He better treat you like a queen, and then you will forgive. So any kind of tit for tat, I will forgive you if you do such and such for me. Again, a huge giving to get, and really codependent, because codependent means giving to get, giving something in order to get something. So even if you're gonna give forgiveness after they've shown you how special you are, or how much they love you, or affection, or whatever. So Jesus again talks about how this is really keeping us in slavery, because then what happens is that becomes a circle, because you are in this bargaining. I will forgive you if you do this, and in reality, that is adding to your guilt. You may not see it, but every time we attack a brother or are unloving towards a brother, it adds to our guilt. And then we have to project that guilt. And then we have to see it someplace else. And then we have the blame, and it just starts all over again in the circle that we will never get ourselves out of. So Jesus tells us that the only way out of this is freedom. The only way out of this is true forgiveness, to use forgiveness as the way God intended. Okay? And we're going to get into that next week, but we've already kind of talked about it. I think it was last week where he talks about it, just don't see the error. Don't make it real. It's not a sin. Nobody is bad. Nobody is doing anything to you. Okay? So we will talk about that next week, and I'm so happy that you joined us today. And if you are watching this for the first time and you want to get caught up, because this is part of a series, I'm not even sure what number I'm on right now, but you can head on down to the website, which is in the description below this video on YouTube, or you can just watch the videos on YouTube. They're all there too. So that is it for today, and have a great week, everybody. I love you. Bye-bye.